Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Time is flying by. It has been just over a month since I planted this forest. This forest is a mixed forest. It has native trees. It has North American larches in the front, and behind it, North American Black Spruce. If I were to picture a scale for this forest, I would imagine a person quite small, maybe 3 centimeters, just over an inch tall. That would look about right for these trees. In a scale planting like this, the trees have to be kept fairly pruned, otherwise they get big and shaggy and it doesn't look very miniature anymore. So today I'm going to go in and refine all the trees, doing some pinching, pruning, refining the moss, getting it all looking good. It looks like all the trees have survived in the forest. There were a few. There's one over here that I wasn't sure if it was going to make it, but then it got this nice strong shoot up top. There were a couple of shoots coming out near the apex there, one at the back, so it looks like it's recovering. A lot of times when you're repotting trees, they struggle a bit at first, but then the roots start growing and the strength of the tree comes back. So that's what's happened with a lot of these trees. But so far everyone is alive, except my 2 dead trees that I planted here on purpose. That gives it kind of that bog feel. In some bogs you see a lot of dead trees growing in the middle of a kind of a swamp. My wild chamomile in here has become quite tall. You can see the one out front is tall, the one at the back has a flower on top, and it's getting as tall as some of the trees. So I'm going to have to prune those back and get them back to scale. And I like them. I like them in the planting. They look like, you know, a little tree. Once I prune them to size, I think they'll be perfect. I also like my little undercover here. It reminds me of some bog forest, maybe a stand of ferns or something. Yeah, I really like having sort of these mixed plants, moss plants on the forest floor. The moss is doing quite well. You can see it in back behind the dead trees there, the dead spruce. Maybe I can come around here. There's a look at the moss, nice and lush and green. The moss out front is a little yellowy, but that's normal this time of year. In midsummer, you know, when it's hot, we've had a lot of hot weather lately, it's hard to keep moss looking perfectly green. So it's natural that it goes a little yellowy over the summer. And then when the cooler weather comes and the rains, the moss greens up once again. This forest looks in 2D, when you see it on camera, it looks very crowded and sort of uninviting, and I like that about it. I think it looks like a realistic forest that, you know, if you were to walk into this forest, you'd have to figure out, well, where can I go? What path should I take? Maybe there is no path and you've got to make your own or find a path. It's there's no obvious entrance into the forest that invites you in and takes you down a man-made path or a deer path or anything. It reminds me of a lot of forests I've been in, and you look at the forest and you wonder, oh, how am I going to get through here? How do I get from A to B? There's no obvious way. And that's what I like about this one. It has that really natural, wild look to it. I'm going to start today by pruning the spruce. You can see a lot of them have really long shoots on them. They need to be pinched back or pruned back to keep the apex of the trees kind of miniature. And again, my aim for these black spruce is to get that kind of arrowhead on the top of the tree. I will try and keep my lower branches. We'll see how that goes, but because I do want that backdrop of green against the larch trees, so in fall, when the larches turn that nice golden color, they'll be kind of highlighted by the spruce, the dark color of the spruce behind them. I'll get the forest on the spinning tree bonsai turntable and begin the work. If the tree is really strong, like this central one here, I'll prune it back as tightly as I can get it, always keeping a little bit of the new growth. All right, here I go. So here's a shoot. And I'll prune that one back by about, I'll probably take 2/3 off it because it is near the apex and it's good and strong. So I'll just grab the new shoot at the base here, pinch the tip off. Here's another one going vertical, grab it by the base, pinch the tip off. A couple of branches more horizontal. And if the shoot looks weak, you can take less off, you know, you can just take 1/3 off it. Or if it looks really weak, just pinch the very tip of it. So that's branches pinched, but now, you know, my goal is to bring this apex in really tight, like an arrowhead. So I do have some shoots back on the branch here that I could prune this branch back shorter. So I'll do that. Here's the branch here. Now, off of the branch, I've got 2 shoots sticking up vertically, which I don't think they'll ever be part of the design. All they're going to do is block light to the branch below and maybe stop backbiting. So I'm going to take them off, those vertical ones. So here I go. There goes one. Another one further back here. Like that. So now I have got the branch coming out. It subdivides here. There's one branch coming off here, another here. So I'll just take the tip off here. So I've got that branch as compact as I can get it, and the tips are pinched back. So I'll start up here now on this branch, and it's similar. I have a branch growing in towards the tree here, so I'll get rid of that shoot. So that gets rid of that vertical part of the shoot. Now, back behind, see all these brand new branches that I have coming out? So those weren't on there when I initially planted this tree. So I have the choice. I can replace this, you know, thicker, more mature branch up here with some of these smaller ones, which I will do. So I'm going to take that branch right off. Here I go. Like that. I'm going to try this shoot, see how it tastes. It's not bad. Tastes good, actually. I'm going to continue working on the apex here. I have all these new shoots, and then I have the original apex growing up here. So I'm going to pinch the original apex. I'm going to keep it. I could prune it right back and replace it with one of these fine shoots, but I think this tree needs to be this height. So I'm going to pinch these shoots back like that and there. And I'll probably get back budding on this apex. Now I do have a whirl of new branches coming off the apex here. I could thin some of them. However, you know, I do want that arrowhead shape up here. I'm going to equalize the vigor a bit in them. There's a stronger shoot here. I'll pinch the tip off like that. One here, I can pinch the tip like that, just taking the little bit of the tip off. There's a branch back here that's a little thick. I'm going to remove it entirely and replace it with one of those thinner new branches. So that's gone. So kind of the apex is dealt with now. I've got my original apex and all these fine little shoots coming off, which are all new shoots this year. So it brings me down to my second set of branches down below these ones. I'll just do some pinching on this one. I'll just pinch it back. They're good strong shoots. Like that. So that branch is pinched back. It's as compact as I can get it. If I prune it back to this branch, it kind of goes 90 degrees, I kind of lose the flow of my branch. So I kind of can't really reduce it too much further at this point in time. There's one back here that has 3 shoots. Again, I can't do much. All I can do is pinch them for now. Let me do that. I'll just grab it at the base here. Pinch the top off. Grab it at the base. Pinch the top off. Like that. So that branch is pruned up nice and compact. There's a new shoot off here. It's not really strong enough to pinch, so I'm just going to leave that for now. There's a branch out here. I can pinch those back. I could pinch this one just a bit too. There. Maybe this one also just... I may get some ramification if I pinch the tips. Okay, that's looking good. So that's kind of, dealt with the upper part of the tree, so I'll keep going down. I've got a branch out the back here that's really strong. I'll do a bit of pruning. I'm going to take the tip off of it, like that. I'll pinch the growth on this tip now, like that. That's got that branch pruned up pretty nicely. There is a vertical section on it that I could take off. Shoot sticking straight up. Some more pinching here. So you can see as I go down the tree, the vigor is less. The new shoots are, there's good growth on them, but it's not really vigorous. So all I can do is like pinch the tips very lightly on them, hoping to get more ramification. There's a branch here that kind of interferes with the tree beside it, so I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to make it deadwood. I'm just going to prune the tip off of it, like that. Just so the trees aren't meshing with each other, they're not overlapping. So this branch, I'll just pinch all the growing tips. I should keep eating them. I think these spruce tips are high in vitamin C. And they taste good when they're tender. I mean, they do have that strong sprucey taste to them, but they kind of have a sweet taste too. Yeah, the rest of the tree's looking fairly good. I can't do a whole lot. I've kind of pinched it, so hopefully I'll get some back budding on some of these branches, and then I can reduce that apex further in time. I'll prune up the rest of the spruce trees in the back row here using the same techniques, and then we'll come back and start on the larches. Here's a look at the back of the forest now, where all the spruce trees are. I've got them pruned up as much as I can today, and it's kind of exciting, taking these, I guess this is the second steps for these trees on their way to becoming, miniaturized trees. So it's quite exciting getting them, further shaped, seeing how they're developing. So I've got kind of, each tree has its space. It's not overlapping too much with the tree beside it, and I'll continue and improve that in the future. I'm used to this kind of technique from the larches, trying to keep each tree, tight so it doesn't spread and start overlapping into the other trees. So it just takes, a lot of pruning, letting the tree grow, prune it back, grow, prune it back again. So I'm happy with the row of spruce trees. I think they've come a long way. And they're all alive, which is really good. I'm back to the front of the forest now, and you can see some of the larch trees have incredible vigor. Like, look at the size of the needles and the growth on that shoot there. Really vigorous. Other ones, this one has a little tighter growth. This one looks healthy. That one looks healthy. The one back here is really healthy. This one's kind of moderate. So I'm going to prune the larches back now. So again, I can either pinch the tip off here or prune it back with scissors. There's lots of space in between the needles for me to get my scissors. All right, I'll start on this tree out front here. I've got a branch here that can be pinched back. One here. There's some shoots on the inside. There's one going straight up I'm going to remove. The rest look fairly good on that branch. One below, I can pinch the tip off that. Tip off this one. Tip off this one. And those branches look good. These ones are just developing. I can't touch those. These ones are just developing. There's new shoots coming out. And then I've got, you know, the dead section where the rabbits prune these trees off. And here's my first kind of whirl of live branches. So I'll do a little pinching. I'll keep the one out front as my leader, and I'll pinch the other ones back, keeping that triangular form like that. And that's got that first larch pruned up. Some of the larch trees at the edge of the forest are very tiny. You can see the height of them. They're the height of my finger. So I've got to, you know, keep them pruned and try and get a conical shape to them so they look miniature. I think it's just going to be a matter of a bit of pinching on these. Yeah, the rest of the branch structure looks fine. It just needs pinching the tips to get more ramification, hopefully more back budding, and maybe I can shape it into a conical form eventually. All right, so here I go with the pinching. Just pinching the tips off the branches. And that's about it for that tree. There's a few weeds I'm going to pick out here. And there's a little bit of that Irish moss. Very aggressive stuff, so I'm going to pick that out. And it looks beautiful. It's just it has really deep roots, and it's hard to water the trees then because it kind of chokes out the surface of the soil, becomes covered with this mat of roots, and it's hard to get water down into your pot. There you can see this clump of it had flower pods developing, so I'm glad to get that out before it goes to seed. The other larch in this planting, you know, the shoots are just starting to elongate, so I'll just do a bit of pinching on them, and I'll probably have to pinch them you know, 3 or 4 times over the summer. Larch are fast growers, especially if you water and fertilize them well. Some of the trees in this planting I do have to prune with scissors. I just can't, you know, get my fingers in between these trees to pinch them, so I come in with the scissors and just prune the tips off. And you try and get between the needles, but if you don't, you will get a little browning of the needles. But unless it's going in a show or something, it quickly, you know, those brown needles quickly get covered up by more foliage and they fall off eventually anyway. So it's no big deal. Yeah, these miniature forests, they require tweezers and these long handle scissors to get in there to get, you know, the trees pruned. There's just no way for my hand to get in there and do the work. And if you don't do the work, the forest quickly loses its shape and it becomes just a big blob. You don't see the individual trees, and it just becomes a bit of a mess. I've got all the trees pruned up in the forest as tight as I can get them for today, and now it's time to work on the landscape. Here's a look at the landscape, and you have to imagine you're a person, you know, this high, walking through the woods, and you gotta look for things that look out of scale. So, you know, moss that's gotten too high, or weeds that have grown up. Anything that kind of catches your eye as being out of place. The first thing I'm going to work on is the wild chamomile. It's grown very tall. Now I'm going to make them look like miniature trees, so I just have to prune them back in height so they're not quite so tall. It almost looks like a miniature sunflower. So I think, you know, if I want it to look like a tree, I'm going to prune it back to this node right here, like that. That looks like a good height. The rest aren't too bad. They're kind of like a small, if you'd see a small spruce growing in a forest or something. So I'm happy with the rest. I'll just take the flower off this one, like that. I've been looking at the forest floor and I think everything's looking good. I like the moss kind of long. It looks like when you walk through a forest, you've got a lot of plants that are kind of knee to waist high. So I think if it was pruned down to look like a manicured lawn, it would look out of place. I think the taller, wilder looking moss looks perfect for this forest. The only thing I might do is on the edges, both the left and right hand side, maybe just transition it, shorten the moss at the edges so it kind of flows into the center of the forest a bit. So I'll do that. So here I've got the flat lip of the pot, and then I kind of got a mound of moss here, so I just want the moss a little shorter near the edges. I got my curved scissors. They're fantastic for pruning moss. So I'll do the same on this side, just kind of pruning the moss back, making that transition into the forest a little smoother. And there's a clearing area here. I can prune the moss back a bit too. Any moss that's overhanging the lip of the pot, you can kind of prune away also, just to tidy it up. I finished pruning up my North American Larch and Black Spruce forest, and I think it's looking really good. So no major changes today, no dramatic transformations, just maintenance pruning that keeps this forest looking miniature and improving it for the future, getting those trees a little tighter looking. So just small steps that, you know, will add up over the years if I keep doing this. And eventually it should look like, you know, magical, a miniaturized forest, and that's what I'm after. Let's fly in now and have a look at the forest. Coming up on the next video, I'll be working on my larch forest, and I'm going to try some new techniques that I haven't done before, and that's defoliation and partial defoliation in the canopies. So that'll be really interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this technique and how I can apply it to this forest in the long term. The thuja trees are greening up now. They usually start greening up around, you know, June. You can see the new growth coming out. It's green and healthy looking. So that's nice to see. I like when they green up in spring. There's my cathedral style cedar, and it's also greening up nicely. Exciting to see it. It'll be interesting watching it grow this year. My small leaf linden is coming out into leaf now, looking really good. This tree has flowered the last 2 years in a row, so I'm sure it'll flower again this year. My Austrian pine, in a previous video I pinched the buds on it, and you can see the needles are definitely unfolding now. It's looking really good. It has, I mentioned, it has a lot of needle density. So I've got it in full sun here, and I'm expecting a lot of growth on it this year. And I think, maybe it's my imagination, but I think the trunk is already starting to look larger. So yeah, we'll keep watching this tree over the summer. I'm expecting good things from it this year. A lot of good, strong growth on it. My Scots pine here is continuing to grow. This was the experiment where I was going to leave all the new growth mature and harden off, and then kind of towards mid to late summer I'm going to hard prune it back. My thinking is that all these needles, because you know the energy in the tree is being distributed amongst all this foliage, that the needle size will be very small, and then when I hard prune it back, I'll maintain the shape, and it should back bud like crazy because all this needle density we'll get all kinds of vigor in the tree, and then I hard prune it back, and all that energy will be, going into new buds. I've been using that technique on my bird's nest spruce. I've used that for the last, I think, 2 years, where I let all the new shoots grow, and you can see these are the new shoots for this year. And I let them harden off, and then I go in and prune the tree. And yeah, it's worked quite well. I think, the only difference in the two techniques between, pinching the new growth in spring or letting it grow and then hard pruning it back later is how much vigor you want in the tree. If you want to decrease the vigor in the tree, I would say spring pinching is the best. It'll take vigor out of the tree. If you're getting too rampant a growth, too much elongation, if you really want to miniaturize a small tree, I would stick with pinching. If you kind of want to balance the energy of the tree, growing it and keeping its shape at the same time, I would say maybe this technique's better, letting them mature and then hard pruning it back. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how, the two techniques work out. I had my Natal ficus, it's an African ficus, in the greenhouse, and I took it out and put it in full sun here now. And I'm not going to keep it in the greenhouse because I was getting all kinds of aerial roots on it. You can see them back there. And they were coming out of the trunk, and they come out of the branches. My idea for this tree is to grow it like an African ficus in a hot, arid environment. So in Africa, some of them don't get aerial roots just because it's so dry. And that's what I want this tree to look like. I don't want aerial roots growing on this one, even though they grow like crazy if you put them in humidity. So that's the reason I have it out in full sun now. You can see the new leaves, the outdoor leaves are just starting to grow in. You can see them right up here. So that's exciting because these indoor leaves they got sunburned and aren't looking the greatest. So I think in a couple of weeks, this tree will look much better than it does at the moment. But I'm really happy with the development of it. I think it's going to look like a grand old ficus someday. I did the video the other day on my Douglas firs, and I forgot to mention I still have those 2 little seedlings that Lessig brought to me. I haven't planted them yet. They're still in their original pots there. So I should do that. I just seem to never get time in spring, but I'll definitely do that. That one tree that I thought was a beech, I'm remembering now that I think it's a Zelkova. It's back here. Someone in the comments mentioned that the beeches get those really thick, pointy buds on it, and I went, yeah, that's right, they do. And this tree doesn't have those kind of buds. And then I remember back that Michael from the club, from the KW club, he planted a bunch of Zelkova seedlings, and I remember him giving me one. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is, a Zelkova. My silver maples, I noticed right on the trunk here, you can see a blister. There's a big scale insect there, so I'm just picking them off, and I'll give it a spray with soap and water. Get rid of those. But they're all growing, which is good. My maples are doing well. There's my Norway maple growing really well. My Manitoba maples are doing well. My red maples doing well. The willow's doing well. This is a black willow. It's a native willow. My apple tree's growing well. Yeah, everything's doing quite well. I am slowly transitioning trees from the greenhouse to the outdoor full sun, like my Sarissa here. It's now been in full sun for quite a while now, so it's doing well. There's still some of the indoor leaves that are going yellow and falling off, but all the new growth looks really good. Nice small leaves, nice tight foliage. Yeah, nothing like growing them in the full sun. A lot of articles say not to grow them in full sun, but if you keep up with the watering, I can see right now it needs more water. If you keep up with the watering, you can grow them in full sun with no problems. Here's a look at my witch's tree, and it's planted over a really nice limestone rock. And you know, I've got all the roots buried, and they're growing along the rock under there. So I'm going to remove all the other rocks. I think the tree is firmly anchored to the new rock. So I can take away all this soil and these rocks that are holding it in place, and finally maybe get a glimpse of what this tree will look like in the future. So that'll also be coming up later on this year. I've got a lot of my tropical trees growing here in the shade and semi-shade. They're getting used to the outdoors, and most of them are adapting quite well. I got a little sunburn on some of the leaves. You can see my money tree here. The leaves are kind of sunburned, but the new growth will come in and then I can put it in the full sun. Yeah, so this is just a temporary location for them until they get used to the outdoors. Hopefully by then I'll have my greenhouse up and I can arrange the benches properly. Lots of work to go this summer. I'm back out here at the farm. We've got today and tomorrow to finish getting the manure, and then the place is sold. So when I started doing the manure, it was piled up to the edge of the concrete. You couldn't see any concrete at all. So we've taken all this, which is about, I don't know, I would say a third to a half of the manure that's here. So quite a bit. It's been a lot of hard work, a lot of lifting, but all worth it. It's when you get free compost like this, you take it. Julian and I have loaded up the truck once again with another load of horse manure. It's right full. So we'll be back out tomorrow to get a couple more loads, maybe even 3 or 4, and that'll be it. I'm happy with my northern mixed forest, and that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.